Welcome back to CWM University, where we learn together, and today we'll be discussing equality versus equity. When I transitioned from being an elementary teacher to a middle school teacher, I noticed that my students were always worried about somebody else. Why does she get to use a calculator? Why is his font bigger than mine? Why does he get to leave the classroom when they take a test? And so a lot of times I would just tell the students to mind their own business. But then I thought about it. If I was an 11 or 12-year-old, would I care if somebody got to use a calculator in math class? Their print was larger and they got to leave the classroom during the test. I'd probably be curious and probably wonder why. So I came to a point where I had to figure out how to mitigate that. I couldn't keep telling the students to mind their business because they were naturally curious, as they should be as an 11 and 12-year-old. So I need to figure out a way to make them feel comfortable with knowing that other people in the classroom would get accommodations that they were not able to receive. During this time, if the students had a question, I would answer them. I didn't want to be the teacher that says just because I said so, or I'm the adult and I said this is how it's going to be. So I had to figure out some type of story for them to understand what fair looks like in the classroom, what equity looks like in the classroom. Because to them, they always say, it's not fair, it's not fair, they get to do this, it's not fair. And that's what you hear, but as an 11, 12-year-old, you want to know why. As a grown person, if I was at work and somebody got to leave at 2 o'clock every day and I had to wait till 4 o'clock, I want to know why. I don't think it's fair. I need somebody to explain to me why my coworker can leave at 2 and I have to wait till 4. So I just try to use empathy and put myself in the student's shoes. So in order to do this, I decided to tell them the story. So I'm going to tell you the story that I told my students to help them understand what fair actually looks like in my math class. And it really worked, surprisingly. In order to tell this story, you need a couple things. You need a box of tissues, and you're gonna need about 4 note cards. On these 4 note cards, I had to write 4 different injuries. So I'll tell you about the injuries in a second, but I wrote 4 different injuries and I taped them to the back of chairs. So the students usually don't look at the back of their chair unless there's a number on the back of their chair. They may look at it. So if that's the case, then I will tape them under the desk. It just depends on the school year and how I had the classroom set up. So I would tell the students, we're going to imagine we're going on a field trip. We're going on a school bus. So let's all get on the school bus and go on a field trip. So I tell them, we're on a field trip, we're all on the bus, we're driving, we listen to some music. I usually try to use something that's popular at the time. So I remember one year I used Kiki, Do You Love Me? The kids love that song. So I would tell them, I'm looking back and singing the song with everybody. And then all of a sudden I turn around and there's 3 soccer balls going across the road. And see, I turned around too late and I had to swerve because I was trying to miss the soccer balls. Because I swerved, we got in an accident. We never made it to Chick-fil-A, and now we're here. And I also tried to use a restaurant that was popular at that time. We had a Chick-fil-A around the corner from the school, so the kids love Chick-fil-A, so I used that. I'm trying to use anything that's relatable and to keep them engaged in the story. So I tell them, I'm sorry, y'all. We never made it to Chick-fil-A. We barely got the parking lot. And some of y'all got hurt. And it was like, what? We got hurt? I said, yes. Look on the back of your chair or under the table, depending on where I put the card, and see if you got hurt. If you got a note card close to you, then you have an injury. I will tell them, raise your hand if you have an injury. If you have an injury, we're gonna go to you one by one, see what your injury is, and I'm gonna help you because it's my fault that we got into an accident. So the students will read out their injuries. One will have a bloody nose, one will have a fractured arm, one will be missing a leg, and then one will have a concussion. So I'll let them all read their injuries. And then I say, you know what? I feel so bad that we got into this accident. I'm going to help you. So I grab my box of tissues. I go to the student who had the bloody nose first. And I say, here you go, sweetheart. I'm so sorry that you hit your nose. Use this for your bloody nose. Then I go to the person with the fractured arm. I'm so sorry, baby, that you fractured your arm. I should do better. Here's a tissue for your fractured arm. Then I'll go to the student with the missing leg. And I say, are you missing a leg? Oh my goodness, what can I do to help you? Oh, that's right. Let me give you a tissue as well to help you. And the kids usually go crazy by then because they're like, you got a missing leg, you giving them a tissue? And then finally I go to the kid with the concussion and I'll say, you had a concussion, you hit your head, you feeling bad, huh? I don't have any Tylenol or anything, so I'm gonna give you a tissue too. This should help you feel better. So after I give everybody a tissue, I ask the students, what's wrong with it? And they're like, why? You can't give such and such a tissue because they had a missing leg. Or you can't give such and such a tissue because they had a fractured arm. I said, but I gave this student a tissue and they had a bloody nose. Didn't it help them? And it's like, yeah. So I said, I wanted to treat everybody fair. So I treated everybody the same way. And it's like, yeah, but it's still not fair because it's not what everybody needed. And I said, I thought it was fair because I gave everybody the same exact treatment. So after I calmed them back down about them being mad because I gave somebody a tissue for their missing leg, I explained to them that sometimes in math class, you will have times that somebody gets a calculator and you don't get a calculator. Sometimes somebody may get to go out the room to take their test and you don't get that. But you have to understand that I'm going to give you exactly what you need in my class to be successful. And for some students to be successful, they may need a calculator. They may need larger font on their printed paper. They may need to leave the classroom so they'll not have distractions. So by doing this, I was able to answer the students why. Why did somebody get something that I didn't get? And also it started to eliminate me having to always explain to somebody or telling them to mind their business. They're curious 11 and 12-year-old or a curious 10-year-old, curious 15-year-old. They just want to know why somebody is being treated differently. Because I know that if my coworker got to leave at 2 o'clock every day and I had to stay to 4, I'm going to start asking some questions. Like, what could I do to get that 2 o'clock leave time? The only thing I had to worry about was the students who got to use the calculator, for them selling their calculator for the day. Because they will tell students, hey, you give me $1, you can use my calculator for today in math. I had that happen before, but you know, you live, you learn as a teacher and know what to look out for and what to maybe expect. Now, after telling this story, this probably was like the second day of school. I had multiple classes, so I would tell the kids, don't tell anybody the story or the outcome of the story. Just tell them that we're going to go on a field trip in math class, and they'll get really excited about that. I said, but you don't want to spoil the surprise. And kids love to know something somebody else doesn't know. Class will come in and like, oh, I heard we going on a field trip today. I said, yep, just go ahead and sit down. I'll get everybody ready for the field trip. But they never knew what was going on because the class before them, if they saw somebody that was coming to my class, they didn't tell them because they always wanted to be the ones who knew what was going on. But I noticed that it really helped the students understand why some students get accommodations in the classroom and some did not. I wasn't that teacher that says because I said so. I explained it to them where they could understand as 11 to 12-year-old, because we're all curious. If somebody gets something different than we get, we want to know why. Granted, sometimes you probably don't want to really know why, but you want some type of explanation, and the kids deserve an explanation, and I deserved a peace of mind to not have to answer that question all the time. Handled it from the beginning so it wouldn't become a problem long term, which helped me managing my class, making sure that everybody felt that I was there for them and I was going to help them when they need it and how they need it. Always think about treating your students with equity. Equality is what's fair, but equity gives the students what they need to be successful and see over the fence. So thank you again for spending some time with me. If you can, go ahead and like and share this video. Leave a comment in the comments. Have you ever had to deal with this in your classroom? Do your students constantly yell out, it's not fair, it's not fair? How do you handle that in your classroom? Until next time, peace out.